I feel like a traitor because I'm still close with family members who cut off my sister when we were kids. Sorry for rambling. TLDR. My dad and his side of the family cut my sister, 26F, off for something she did when we were kids but continued to accept and love me, 23M. Sister gets more and more depressed all the time because she has no family support other than me. No one will even tell me what she did to get cut off, and I feel like I'm betraying her while not wanting to lose the rest of my family. Our parents have been divorced since I was really young, like 2 or 3. Mom had primary custody, but we spent a lot of time with our dad and his side of the family too, holidays especially. Then at some point when I want to say between 7 and 10, Dad started only picking me up and my sister, I'll call her M, stayed behind at Mom's. I don't remember if I asked why at the time. I was a kind of oblivious asshole kid who only cared about video games, and I didn't get along at that age, so I didn't question it. Over time, I found out it was because M did something that upset the adults on Dad's side of the family so bad that she got banned from all our aunts' and uncles' houses, and our grandma told our dad to cut her off completely. No one would tell me what she did, but M had a lot of emotional and behavior problems at the time. So I figured it was one of her tantrums or stunts at school that finally broke the camel's back, so to speak. M hasn't spoken to our dad or anyone from his family in at least 15 years, and her relationship with our mom never recovered from whatever happened back then either. So until I started getting more mature and making an effort to fix our relationship, she didn't really have anyone that showed her any family affection. A few years ago, I started to notice that M gets depressed when she knows I'm going to see our dad's family, especially on holidays. So I tried to do the hero brother thing and facilitate a reconciliation. It didn't work out. Dad, Grandma, and anyone else in the family I approached about M said there's no coming back from her actions, but when I asked what that was, they all got uncomfortable and said it wasn't for them to tell me. I took that to mean I should ask M herself, so I did, but she got really upset and wouldn't tell me because it was too humiliating. Finally, I gave up and asked Mom, which ended badly to say the least. Mom has a lot of issues when it comes to M in the past. This past Sunday, of course, was Easter, and I went to Grandma's for the usual big family supper. I try not to mention anything when I go to family functions, so as not to make him feel worse, but she's not stupid. She knows what goes on holidays. I decided to dip out early and surprise M with a drive to DQ, but when I got home, I heard her crying in the living room. Like I can't even describe it, but she obviously thought she was alone in the house or she'd never cry like that. The sound straight punched me in the gut. I didn't want to embarrass her, so I left again and texted her from my car saying I'd be home in 20 minutes. Went and got some ice creams for us and came back. She wasn't crying when I got back, but it was obvious she was before. She mentioned that she came across some old family photos on her laptop and got kind of emotional. I'm feeling like a pretty crappy brother right now, to say the least. My gut reaction is that no matter what M did, she was only a kid when she did it, and therefore cutting her off from our family was overkill, and I should be supporting her 100% instead of playing happy families on both sides. But at the same time, I can't bring myself to ditch my dad's family and make myself an outcast too, because they've always loved and supported me. Family drama sucks, man. I miss being the little self-centered asshole who had no clue any of this was going on. This BS must be why I always get urges to un-okay myself when I get too drunk. Edit. This is a way bigger response than I expected. Thank you everyone who took the time to respond and trust. I am reading all the comments, but in the meantime, I'll address some of the points that keep coming up repeatedly. I really hope that CSA is not the cause of all this, but if it is, I want to know so I can go scorched earth on the whole family. Fuck that. The only thing making me doubt the CSA possibility at all is that I'm certain that if my sister was SA'd, our mom would have treated her even worse than she has. M is absolutely our dad's child. She looks like a gender swap clone of him. I have no idea if M is gay, bi, curious, or anything. She's never dated. She's never even had a friend. When we were little, before the family BS, she'd try to hang out / play with our cousins near her age, classmates, or neighbor kids, but they always either ditched her or attacked her pretty much immediately. She never socialized at all in high school, and still doesn't. Yes, we're both aware our mom is an abusive POS. We have our own ways of coping with her BS, and I'm saving up to move out. Unfortunately, M refuses to consider moving out because she's convinced she's incapable of living independently despite holding a full-time job for over 5 years now. M being retarded and incompetent is another one of our mom's long-time talking points. Related, M will not ever go to therapy. I've suggested it a bunch of times as an option to help her gain the confidence to move out of mom's, and she shuts it down every time. I might have another way of finding out what happened, or at least getting an idea of it. Since M won't say anything, I'm thinking 2 of my cousins might have heard something, because they used to live in our grandma's house. Comment 1. I really can't think of a reason for an entire family of adults to permanently cut off a 10-year-old child. Like, she was a child. What could she have possibly done was so bad that she was abandoned by her own father and his entire family? If I was you, I would put my foot down and tell your dad that unless he tells you the whole truth about why he abandoned his own minor child and never tried to reconnect with her, then you will be going no contact with him. It's completely unacceptable that they deemed whatever she did to be so horrible they can't ever forgive her, but also can never explain to you what happened. Comment 2. Have you ever considered that maybe something happened to M? And maybe she told an adult and was disbelieved and then banished because they didn't believe her? Update 1. First, I apologize for taking so long to update. My family has gone through a lot in the past year. of which my investigation of the drama surrounding my sister M and my dad's side of the family has been only a drop in the bucket. I've gotten loads of messages and chat requests asking for updates and offering help. Apparently, my post even made it into Newsweek, but I don't use the chat feature here and missed the journalist's request for comments, which I wasn't going to give anyway, but that should give you an idea of how overwhelming this all is. I've spent a lot of this past year doing more documenting than I ever thought I'd need to, because at one point I had a friend who's a social worker advise me to do so just in case of a couple of pretty far-fetched IMO scenarios that could potentially lead to court. I sincerely doubt that anything would ever come of it even if what she says is true, but the documentation has given me a lot of insight into my family's dynamics. On that note, I can tell you that M has never been a victim of SA, either in childhood or as an adult. I've had several conversations with her where she has confirmed this herself, and I have no reason to believe she's not being honest. I can also confirm that she is 100% without a doubt our dad's child. He's never doubted this, and neither has anyone else in the family. Oddly enough, one of the things I uncovered in my investigation is that my paternity was called into question several times when I was very young. But that's a story for a different day. As for whether M did anything sexually inappropriate with another child when she was also a child, my immediate and short answer is no, but other people given the details I've dug up would probably answer somewhere between not intentionally, and it depends on how you look at it. The TLDR version is that during a couple of our big family Christmas parties, M, who was 9 to 10 at the time, played with a younger girl, 5 to 6 at the time. We're sort of tangentially related to Jenna, our cousin's cousin on their mom's side. M made Jenna play a weird make-believe game she made up that was focused on death, and apparently inspired by some books M was obsessed with. M honestly thought her game was harmless, but Jenna later had a really bad reaction to it that M didn't know about. After this took place during 2 consecutive parties, Jenna apparently started showing signs of trauma and finally told her parents the following year. Jenna's mom went scorched earth on M and would have literally ended her given half a chance. And then because of her overblown reaction, all the adults in the family decided that it was intentional abuse or bullying. Then one of our much older cousins apparently made an offhand comment at some point comparing M's game to hurt/comfort fanfiction. And when the older folks asked him to explain, he mentioned in the course of his explanation that fanfic writers frequently get off on what they write. That led all the older folks to believe that M had sexual motivation for emotionally torturing Jenna. From there, our grandma got so sickened by M that she demanded everyone disown her and never mention her name again. When I asked my dad about it, he absolutely refused to speak of it beyond confirming that M is biologically his and saying he has spent a lot of years in therapy trying to forgive himself for fathering what he calls a perverted psychopath. I gave him an ultimatum to tell me the whole truth, and he refused. So I haven't had any communication with him for the past year other than sending him a thumbs-up emoji when he texted me Merry Christmas and Happy Birthday. My cousins Mark and Lynn, who are the same age as me and M and lived in our grandma's house for years, filled in a lot of the gaps as to what initially happened and just how crazy Jenna's mom got about it. And my Aunt Gina and oldest cousin Carrie cleared up, for the most part, exactly how the situation got to the point where M was disowned. M has opened up to me a lot about the treatment she received when this all initially blew up years ago, and my mind has been blown with how oblivious I was to it. As I mentioned before, M and I didn't get along until we were in our late teens because she thought I was stupid for hating to read and only caring about video games. And I didn't care how much trouble she got in as long as I could do whatever I wanted while the adults' attention was focused on punishing her, which was usually playing video games. Even with that in mind, though, I'm now seeing myself for the selfish, head-up-the-ass, abuse-facilitating little shithead I was. I haven't officially cut off my dad's family, although I am in very, very limited contact with my dad himself after his refusal to explain and what he said about M. The reason I haven't cut off the family yet is because I'm still working out some of these issues with my cousins and my Aunt Gina, who seems to be the only rational person out of the older adults in the family. Most of my cousins have at least said that they now realize how wrong and unfair everybody has been toward M. I'm not holding out any hope for a reconciliation between the family and M while our grandmother is living. But I am hoping that learning about all of this will help me wise up and break the cycle if I ever have kids. Unfortunately, while I was able to move into an apartment a few months after I first posted, Em refused to move with me. Nothing I said would convince her to join me, and while we could afford it together, I couldn't on my own, so I ended up moving there with a friend who is now my girlfriend. At first, I tried to visit Em every day after work or after supper, but she started demanding that I stay away and just text her instead because the guilt she felt for taking my time away from my girlfriend was causing her physical distress. Since then, she's been living alone with our mom and her mental health has taken a big hit, but she still won't consider therapy or indeed reaching out to anyone. I'm doing my best to respect her boundaries while making sure she's in one piece. Comment: your family consists of unhinged lunatics who would rather disown a child and label her as a perverted psychopath than explain to her why her actions were harmful and why she shouldn't do it. Oh, yeah, and find out where she learned these things from. My sister is 10. If she did something like this, I'd figure out where the F she learned it, and I would put a stop to it, not go scorched earth on the kid. Am I stupid, or is this another way of saying, this adult woman was ready to kill a literal child? There is a special place in hell for these people. Opie response: you're not stupid. Aunt Gina told me Jenna's mom made no secret of what she wanted to do to Em when she ran into the other adults in the family, and Em told me she counted herself lucky that when Jenna's mom confronted her at our mom's house, all she managed to do was slap her and claw her face. At the time, our parents told me Em had beaten up and scratched her own face during a temper tantrum. The following post has not been posted as an update, but posted in Newfoundland subreddit from Opie. An Elf family court. Do orders like this exist at all? My sister is 27 and has a very complicated history with mental and cognitive health. There's no denying that she's extremely mentally unwell and severely traumatized, but she hasn't been psychologically assessed since she was a teenager, hasn't seen any kind of mental health professional since she turned 18, a decision she made herself, and currently doesn't have any conclusive diagnoses. Last year, when I was trying to convince her that we should move out of our mom's house, she told me our mom has been telling her since she turned 18 that there's some kind of order from family court that bars her from signing a lease, opening her own bank account, getting a driver's license, etc. I asked her if she's ever seen a copy of this so-called order, and she said no, she's never seen it. Apparently, she's asked Mom several times to see it, and Mom just says it's with her other important documents in a box somewhere. But she's not going digging for it, because she doesn't fucking want to, and that's that. At some point last year, my sister even called a number she found for the family court to see if she could find out anything about the order, and they didn't confirm or deny if there was one. All they told her was that if she was the subject of an order based on incapacity, they wouldn't be allowed to tell her anything anyway. They could only tell her legal representative. Long story short, I smell BS. If a person is that incapacitated that they're legally barred from signing a lease, how come it didn't affect her ability to sign an employment contract with a job she's had for the past 6 years? Is there anybody here that's familiar with family court and can confirm if orders like she's describing even exist? Comment: orders like that don't just come out of the blue because a parent wants them to. There would have been a whole process involving doctors she would have had to go through where they would interview your sister to see if she is capable of managing her own life. Was there at any point when your sister was a child/you that she would have been the recipient of some kind of annuity, regular payments due to an insurance payout, or a relative left her something in their will? If so, your mom may have had guardianship of a minor for that annuity and is trying to hold on to the income. Alternatively, was your sister classified as having a disability that would have gotten your mom a disability allowance for her? It may be possible that she is continuing to receive money from community supports to house your sister. Advanced Education and Skills has programs for paying upkeep to parents who continue to look after disabled children after they become adults.